All right, everyone, it's time for a little bit of Bitcoin analysis because it broke through its long-term ceiling not that long ago. Now it's at record highs. It's gone down a little bit, but, it gravitates back and forth within a narrow little bit for a while. And then it can either, spike again and skyrocket, or it can collapse, and I'm going to try to analyze that. By the way, disclaimer, I'm not a financial expert or, giving you investment advice. I'm just giving you my opinions on crypto, specifically Bitcoin. I think long-term, if you look at long-term as a couple of years, I wouldn't hedge your bets on Bitcoin. If you're looking at it really long-term, like 10 years or something, yeah, I'd be really, really bullish. And I'd say if you look at all you have to do is look at a graph. And it's following the same basic trajectory as anything like it, like a stock. I know it's a currency that's treated kind of as a property by government as well. It's sort of in a weird gray area where the government wants the best of both worlds. Sort of like watching Silicon Valley platforms pretend to also be allowed to be publishers. Very, very interesting times we live in. Bitcoin, I think, over the very long term wins. There are only a few things that could stop it. Number one would be governments begin banning it in favor of their own centralized crypto. And there are already talks by some nations to try to do that. They may attempt to ban the use of other cryptocurrencies because they see them as competitive with their own economies. Oh, they'll use the excuse of foreign nations will fiddle around with it, and therefore it undermines the nation and their national security, so they're going to ban it so you're not allowed to use Bitcoin for your purchases or something. That could harm it. That's number one. And number two would be like a Carrington event. If there are no computers, Bitcoin becomes fundamentally worthless. But here's the beauty of it. The beauty of Bitcoin is the fact that it has no tangible value, because it's not a tangible thing. It's a bunch of zeros and ones. Here's why that's so important. Anytime that you have a currency, a medium of exchange, you inevitably cheapen things. If I represent this by 1 Styx hexenhammer buck, technically I've just doubled my economy, haven't I? I've got the cup, a third of the way full of coffee that I can clank, and I've got a buck that can buy me another one of these. But I haven't actually created any value. What I've done is I've actually reduced the value of this by half. By default, I've reduced the value. I've reduced the value of the tangible asset that I'm holding by representing it by something else. And this gets into everything about inflation and deflation, all this other bullshit that nobody really cares about or even has a full understanding of, which is why economic experts lose a lot on the stock market, and if they're intelligent, don't invest at all based on their own advice. Here's why Bitcoin wins. It has even less value than fiat currency. Fiat currency is paper. I can use it as tinder. I can use it as toilet paper. People in Venezuela literally wipe their asses with rolls of Maduro's face. It's a wonderful thing now, isn't it? Bitcoin, you can't do that. It has no value of its own. It's a complete stand-in. The other beauty of it, and then that's great because it doesn't, it can't interfere with the tangible value in the sense that it has any other use. It's just the medium itself in an abstract sense. If you use like seashells as a medium of exchange, it's a real physical thing. It has its own use. You can use it as jewelry, coins. People make jewelry out of it. People can make wind chimes. They can make rings out of quarters and stuff like that. Again, paper currency. You can wipe your ass. You can start a fire, and so you can shred it up and use it for your birds because you're just rich and eccentric. Bill Gates' parrot, I'm sure, has a stack of Benjamins in there every day. You can't do that with Bitcoin. The other thing is that Bitcoin, by virtue of design, almost can't long-term lose value, which is why if you look at a graph, you'll see a steady upward trajectory if you just look at the floors. If you draw a line connecting all of those lowest points, it goes upwards. And that curve is increasing in steepness. Where it goes is anyone's guess, but I guarantee it's going to go a hell of a lot higher than it is now. But very, very long term. If you look, we're talking multiple years. Don't bother, if you're going to sell out within a year or two, don't bother to dabble with cryptocurrency. If you're looking at it as an investment as opposed to a day-to-day transactional currency. If you look at it like that, the reason why is because there's a declining rate of return of mining it, number one, but it's infinitely reducible, number two. As there are more people and more goods, and economies over the world tend to grow and will continue over the next some decades to come at a considerable rate, and because Bitcoin lags far behind in its actual value, it will begin to be reduced more and more. So instead of people dealing with 0.0001 Bitcoins, the same tangible value will be 0.000001 Bitcoins. the value of each Bitcoin has risen by virtue of the fact that the number of new Bitcoins there to be used can't keep pace with the economy. And so people will just keep adding more zeros, almost infinitely. Bitcoin, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of next year it's in the six-figure range. It could spike up, long before expectations. It won't hold there, but longer term, like 10 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if it does hit the seven-figure range, as long as governments leave it alone, as long as it doesn't get manipulated, and as long as you don't have some massive digital hack or something like that that plays havoc with it. The other part is, it's harder to hack a physical currency, I suppose. It's not even profitable to print out funny money if you're doing like, Washington and Lincoln. You have to get up to Hamilton at least in order to make it profitable to actually have a counterfeiting operation. Counterfeiting coins isn't particularly profitable. I remember when they used to have blanks or slugs. People would take metal pipe of the right size and they'd cut it into pieces. And you could, use it in machines, the parking meters and stuff. You'd find them all the time, like on the ground and stuff, where people had fucked them. And these days, I think that the quarter, because it's entirely zinc, I think is worth less than the steel blanks that they were using. I've actually got a few of them that I collected from like the 1990s, back when that was common. Can't use them anymore because the machines now will reject them. But Bitcoin, if you look at the floors and you draw a line, and you extrapolate for another 10, 20 years, you're looking at enormous sums of money. So if you do want to join in on one of those rallies, one of those spikes, sell it off at a massive profit, I would say wait, I wouldn't be selling right now. You're selling yourself short, probably by an order of magnitude, possibly more. If you intend to use it more as a transactional thing, if you expect it to become a currency, essentially in the more standard sense, as more people buy in and more companies join in, PayPal now will dabble with it, its value will increase too. The volume of people using it will force it to be reduced further. If everyone were to get in on Bitcoin and it started being used more regularly, Bitcoin would be worth $1 million. Simply by virtue of the fact that it's a pure medium exchange. Again, there are the caveats. Governments could ban them. Governments could tinker with them by making them interchangeable with centrally controlled crypto. And you could have a Carrington event. But barring one of those situations, I'm extremely bullish long-term on crypto. I'm not selling out my portfolio of cryptocurrencies. And no, I don't hold shit coins. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. And if you want to send me some, my Bitcoin and so forth addresses are links in the description. I don't think anyone's going to be sending any anytime soon. Wait until it collapses, and then people will sell out. And they'll say, well, I lost a bunch of money, fuck this. I heard I guess somebody said that Nick Fuentes got like 13 Bitcoin in a donation the other day during a live stream. I'm thinking, isn't that like $250,000 or something? So I know you'll be able to buy another suit at some point. He'll have a whole collection of ties. That's what we need. We need a Nick Fuentes video where he has a closet full of ties and shit, and he's taking us through his nostalgic collection. Like, I'm assuming like a vintage Ronald Reagan tie or something. That's what he needs. That's about all. Peace out.